she's not really here to defend herself.
She's
chosen not to. I understand.
I understand, but
there's like when you're saying that she's created these addresses, and I think at a past meeting she said that was a previous.
It had been done previous to her becoming town clerk.
I have the email. I have an email from Andrea stating she's established them.
Okay.
Okay.
She-
Again,
I
it's
seen that.
public record.
She's not here but I
haven't
want
seen
I don't want to get into the he said, she said. I want to get into what we're trying to correct, and it seems
Okay.
that we're trying to correct the census, and you've
We
done
want to
great
correct
at
it. We
working
want
at
to
that.
correct
I
the census.
totally appreciate that. There was some
This-
good news today with the separating the Gordon and that. So I want to kind of get back to what we need to fix instead of all the backstory.
So the other part you have to fix, well, because of the statement that Walter read this evening, because of the statements that Andrea has made of me, I think it's only fair that I offer my interpretation of facts of the data and to tell the constituents to do their homework and see both sides of the data and look at the public records and find out what actually occurred. And again, she doesn't have to be here, but she's choosing not to be here.
I don't know that I agree with that. Our charge today is to talk about what we need to do to improve.
Perfect.
That's
Then
our
I
charge
can,
today.
so I can go down.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So how are we
It's
doing
up to you.
then
It's up
on
to
your
you.
address
Yeah.
list?
Just-
How are we doing on our address list?
Just
I'm
one-
not answering questions from you right now. I'm
just
making a
one
list
sec.
of how we can
Just-
work on the clerk's
Just
office.
1 second, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So back to the census data.
yes.
A good portion of it has been cleaned up, thanks to you, and thanks to Andrew removing a bunch of those addresses. We still have, it seems like 1,500 addresses to go through, right?
1,500 addresses to go through, and I never even looked at the detail of the addresses because I wasn't gonna look at 9,000 addresses knowing they were false.
No, that makes
I was
sense.
waiting for it to get cleaned up to a normal
Normal amount.
number.
And so then my next thing is in conversations with Andrea and with you, is it seems on some of the census data with the numbers with the households and the actual houses, there's a difference between registered voters, head of household, and actual houses in Hamilton. And we were hoping to have Tina here tonight from the assessor's office to shed some light on that, because there's,
She had a previous engagement.
yeah, she had a previous engagement, she couldn't make it, but I believe there is some type of a difference in the way they account for the households. Andrews is more on the registered voter side, the assessors is a little bit different how they see it, and we had tried to get a couple times a meeting with you and Andrea and Tina together, it just never came to fruition, to sit down and actually talk about what the differences were in that data and see if we could make some kind of consensus on how to clean it up and get it to a point that we're all satisfied with it.
We're gonna make a follow-up question. I mean, I 100% agree it's important to have accurate data. And we need to obviously work towards that, however we decide to work towards that. Just so I understand, because it's inaccurate data, I don't understand, what's the concrete facts of how that has negatively impacted our community over the last 2 or 3 years? How has it negatively affected us, so we can just react to that? And how much time do we have to correct that so it doesn't continue to negatively affect us? That's what I was actually looking
So
for.
it plays into your chapter 70, it plays into your affordable housing counts.
Right, I get that, but how's it negatively affected us so far?
So we've
So
got less
if this
school
moved
money.
forward
Yeah.
to your 2020
Right.
data, it would have significant impact.
So it has to be corrected
So
before
has it had
when?
past significant impact?
We've been lucky so far?
Or since our
Listen,
last census was
when
in
I
what,
talk to the
2000?
state, when I talk to the state, this is how they use the information, and our information is false. Other than that, did I do all the research on everything behind that? No. This is what they use the data for.
Right.
Your data is false. It's going to have the impact. When they pull that data, I don't know. I don't know. But there's 2 pieces to that. It's also used for your local lists. And there's a whole handbook on your local lists. And you use it to send your census data to all your residents. And the state actually has training every year for the town clerks on how to run the census data and how to pull the data to give it to your vendor, which I assume we're not doing
Could you send that to me? The local
Yeah,
list
I can
thing?
send you everything from
So
Yeah.
those 300 or 86 approved addresses at
365.
365, are they getting that census, or we don't know right now?
This Gordon Conwell is a group quarter,
They're just getting one.
so they get one.
Okay.
However, there's this whole, you have census data for your census, then you have to do, the registrars have to do an accurate street listing every year. And in order to do that, the state gives you all the details on how to perform that function and do it properly. If the clerk did it in that way, which I have the file from her, then it would mean that we would have 6,000 more than we actually did. So I'm assuming that then she's not pulling the data as told to pull the data from our systems to create actual accurate street listings. All this information is provided to the clerk on how to do it, how to perform it, and how to move forward. But it is it's an office that is very statutory driven. There is more. There is detailed lists. You can print out all the laws that you're supposed to be following and they're not following. Some are not specific. I don't think it says town clerk shall not commit forgery. But I think I've done my due diligence on my part here. It is unfortunate, I will say though, that I did try and have some quieter conversations about this to get this corrected, but also then the selectmen were not bringing this forward to the constituents, which I don't think is transparent. I don't think we can just not tell people that we know all these errors are occurring.
I don't,
But that's my opinion.
yeah, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I'll disagree with that.
Well,
It's on record.
That's okay.
So I made a list of 8 things that Allison brought up.
You
that
probably
needed
have
improvement.
many more, but I'm gonna leave
Yeah.
those to
No,
you
but I'm gonna-
as
I know, but
my role.
I wanna document the
leaving.
8 that you did a good job bringing up, so we can make sure we tackle these things. We got board of registrars, obviously, we talked about.
Yep.
We really talk about poll workers, but that's another thing too that we.
Yeah,
Poll workers are all nominated incorrectly,
Census,
and they're not following the correct functions within the election.
got the census stuff. Certified planning and zoning decisions, we gotta make sure that was done correctly.
Yep.
Resignation from office procedures, meeting minutes procedures, street lists, and local lists.
right.
Those are the 8 things that
And
specifically.
then the
Ethics
conflict,
compliance.
right, yeah, conflict of interest laws, ethics compliance, that we're kind of almost there on, there's a little bit.
Yeah, I
more
didn't
work
write
to do.
that down, 'cause I thought that was in compliance, but, okay.
Yeah. So then, okay, so we've got a handful of things okay, to work on here. So room for improvement, and I'm sure there's some other things that as we kind of go along in this process of educating and figuring stuff out, we're gonna find some more things, I'm sure. I think it's just the nature of the beast. So I guess moving forward from here, you know, I wish Andrew was here to give some feedback and state her position on it. But I think that for me, this is an operational type of thing, even though she's an elected official, but she's an employee at the same time. It's an interesting situation because we really don't have jurisdiction over her because she's an elected official. But we have to encourage her to work with us. And so I would hope that conversation would happen with you, Joe, and her, bringing up these issues. She's probably watching at home, so she'll know, but at least a conversation, a follow-up conversation. And then how do we move forward from here and correct these issues? And I think that's Allison's point of going through all these documents that Allison has seen that I've looked through and making sure that Andrew is versed on all of them and figuring out if there's some type of I know there's yearly workshops and there's probably monthly meetings of a clerks association or something like that. And I know she's had some concern with being out of the office, but I would encourage her to be out of the office to go to these trainings and learn more about her role as an elected official in the clerk's office. And I would encourage her to reach out to other town clerks. In Wenham, Diane Bucco does a great job. I think there's a lot of qualified clerks in the area, and then maybe some type of, I don't know if there's a mentor program or something. Donna, you had mentioned something earlier, I think to that effect. Was that correct? And that maybe we could have someone come in actually and just kind of see what Andrea does on a day-to-day basis and see if they can help, or have more of an open dialogue with another clerk that Andrea can bounce things off of and help find best practices and to meet the Mass General Law.
Yeah, so when I was speaking with the Elections Division, the General Counsel, Michelle Tassinari, mentioned that the Town Clerks Association has a mentoring program where a town clerk can be assigned a mentor to work with them to learn the job. And Andrea did confirm on Saturday that she is a member of the association. Joe and I had spoken to make sure that she has the appropriate level of membership so that she can take advantage of that.
Confirmed that with her today. I had her, she and I looked at the website together and confirmed that the membership she paid for includes the mentoring program. So I encouraged her to contact them and ask to be enrolled in that.
I'd also like to note that last year we asked Andrea to keep her time in the payroll system as any other employee with FinCom. She agreed to that in writing an email, not in signature, in writing an email, and never actually upheld that.
So,
And that I asked in this spring, knowing all of these issues, as opposed to having tonight's public hearing, and asked if we could have this, knowing the pros and cons of elected versus appointed, and the pitfalls that having someone elected subjects the town to in not fulfilling the role and the statutory requirements. And that is why I brought it to the board and asked them to have the residents consider having this be elected versus appointed, which, by the way, they voted for in 1995, and it passed at annual town meeting that this position should be an elected official and not an appointed position. Unfortunately, if you read the town report from 1995, the town clerk at the time asked at the fall town meeting that that be repealed because it was evident that the town residents didn't understand what they were voting on.
So in 1995, they voted to make it an appointed position?
Elected? Or
No.
You said elected.
No, they made-
Elected to appointed, but then repealed that vote in the fall town meeting.
Say that again, I'm sorry. I got mixed up
I
there.
do my
So
research. I don't make these things up.
So say that again, Allison. In
In
1995,
1995,
it was an
it was a
elected.
unanimous decision. It was an elected position. It
Yeah.
was a unanimous decision. Point to the residents of this town whether or not they wanted this the town clerk's position to change from an elected position to an appointed position.
Okay.
The motion carried on town floor. At the same year is the year that they also passed that the treasurer collector would move from an elected position to appointed position for all the reasons I'm outlining here. And it passed. The town clerk in the annual report, it doesn't say everything that happened, but what it does say is that the town clerk got up at the fall town meeting, the selectmen put it on the warrant article for the fall town meeting, and the town clerk said it was obvious that the residents didn't understand what they were voting for and asked for the vote to be taken again. And at that time, the motion did not pass.
So it was, there were two subsequent in one calendar year town meeting votes, not votes. Okay, I got it. Oh,
Little backstory.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I appreciate the recommendation. The only issue I had with it before was that it was done too close. What we learned, if we've learned anything in this town, is you have to build consensus and do your research. And so I think that you need to take time to do that. So I'm in favor of looking at that as an opportunity. I just think it needs to be done with a little more time and planning than just as a reaction to a personality, so.
Will the board, I won't be on the board, will the board be pursuing anything as far as it appears as though the town clerk used a certified documents inaccurately and with signing someone's name that we shouldn't have?
Right, so at the moment, that's you saying that I don't know either way. So I would imagine that's something we're gonna investigate along with some of these other things here for sure.
It's fine,
I mean,
I
and I
just
can't
hope that
speak
you
for the board
investigate them.
because-
No, I'm
Right.
just, I'm asking the board, we're a board tonight, just as you asked me to
Right.
vote for what you're doing next
Yeah.
week. I'm asking, as the board member stands tonight, I hope that that is something that you will investigate, just as you are investigating the claims of the town clerk about me, that I hope you'll also investigate the actions of the town clerk in those records, which again, they're all on paper, they're all permanent records. That is my hope. I will follow up with you as a resident in the future, but that is what I would recommend. And actually, I will make a motion that the Board of Selectmen investigate the certifications done on the nomination papers and certifications done at the fall town meeting and the nomination papers done on this election.
I guess I prefer the word look into, I don't know what the legal term of investigate is, but look into it.
Then look into it.
Yeah.
Whatever word
Second
you would
on
like
look
to
into.
use.
Second, look into it.
Okay, and we'll do any other discussion. Scott, I know you've been on the phone here, patient. Do you have anything to add to the current discussion if you're still there?
I'm still here. I think there's a couple of points that override everything, which is a sense of urgency, which I think is present, and then how to continue Allison's required expertise and review and report on progress, so that I think she's going to have an important voice, selectmen or not, to help our townspeople have confidence in what's going on. I also think the town clerk needs some help, clearly. There's a variety of methods there, and we ought to ask her to go pursue those things, including enrolling in the registrar mentorship program, find out what's available there for training and development and review of new or review of existing procedures. I think that there's probably going to be some amount of consulting money and training that's going to be required. And because this is urgent, I think that there's two sources of that, which is either the FinCom reserve or a fall town meeting request. Mm-hmm. So to me, it kind of begs the question of a set of timing that says, hey, how do we know things are getting better? Andrea reports at town meeting, so I think the requests have to come and go through that forum. But we should ask her to do those things, and if as much as possible, help guide her with how do you make a request to the FinCom reserve? Would the select board support that, or is it an additional budget request that would need to be made in fall town meeting that says we need a consultant to do training and review or establish some new procedures for the town clerk's office? So to me, I think to step back, it's a set of urgency, which I think is there, that somehow we ask Allison to stay involved. I think she said she will do this as a private citizen, but how to do that in a way where she can review and report on the progress that's being made. And then I think thirdly, it's about, not to make it all about money, but I do think there's going to be financial resources required in the town clerk's office that likely aren't already budgeted, that she needs to make either through the FinCom or at the town meeting.
I think those are all good points.
They're excellent points, but I will say that the state offers most of this training and has offered in the past to come out to Hamilton to help Andrea gain a better understanding of the functions. I believe they'll come out and they'll talk to you on the phone and walk you through all the processes and the handbook. I have the town clerk's handbook. It has the sample letters to write. I mean, I agree with you, and most trainings require money, and I would support putting any money towards this. But it's, you'll be able to accomplish quite a bit if she chooses to participate in gaining the knowledge necessary to perform the function.
Right, with stuff that's already available.
And you know, this job can be a certified job. The reason people get their certifications in the town clerk, it's a hard job. There's a lot of information to know, but they have the resources out there so that you don't take those missteps. You have the people you can call so that you can go through this process.
Right.
Agreed.
So let's just back up 1 second here. We had a motion made by Allison to look into the stamping of the registrar's names on the certificate, the nomination papers.
I second that.
Bill seconded it. So we'll do a roll call vote on that, and then we'll continue the conversation. So all those in favor? Roll call vote. Sean Farrell, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Allison Jenkins, aye.
Scott Madden, aye.
Okay. Walter, you wanted to say something?
You were looking for the amount of buildings or structures. You can get that information from the water department. If it's habitable, they supply a water meter. Okay? Yeah.
Not for wells. We don't have water meters on homes that are served by wells, private wells.
Not many.
If I can just interrupt, we don't have individual wells, individual meters to departments, but I did reach out to Joe and say, would you like me to reach facilities and ask them these questions, or would you? And Joe graciously reached out to Gordon Conwell. I knew how many were in each building. I just didn't know what the actual numbers of the apartments were. Joe got those numbers. Those have been provided to the clerk, to the water department, to the assessors for the first time in 30 years. So.
And we should know where the wells are.
And we do have that data.
The Board of Health keeps those.
Now, when we talked, you had brought up the guidelines. So I called 5 clerks in the North Shore that I know. I've known them a long time. I says, I want to officially ask you a question. And they said, yes, we have guideline books. And I said, off the record, do you follow them? That's what I got. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. I assume over the years, to make the job of the registrars easier, that things were done a different way. That doesn't mean they're wrong, okay, unless it was certain circumstances. But I want to raise, if I listen to all those things.
And I can't say that I disagree with you, but it's a highly responsible job. And you have a lot of responsibility. And I know that everyone doesn't maybe do everything exactly the same, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about our elections. And in this world today, with all the fighting over all the politics, and is this done right and that done right, and is the election fair? Your job, at the end of the day, is to make sure it's fair. And I respect that. And if we don't follow that, then really, where are we?
Knowing the Commonwealth, if we have higher numbers than we're supposed to, we're probably making off better.
Yeah, if you don't mind me saying something, I did, not 5, but I did talk to 2 other local town clerks who, I know I'm not going to mention names. I had a similar off-the-record conversation. both said to me that their boards of registrars rely on them to certify nominating papers, things like that. But they acknowledge that there is a deeper issue here. We have, without going into details, I kind of talked around some of the things that I was aware of through Allison, and they said, yeah, there's still some policies and procedures there you guys probably need to get in place to try to tighten that up. And so I agree that there are things that we can do to improve, and just because other people are not doing it right doesn't mean we shouldn't. If we're going to be taking a look at these things in the department, let's work with Andrea to make sure that we bring all these things up to what the current standards are. Laws change, the requirements by the state change, even when they're not laws, they'll just come out with new guidance every couple of years. And
laws and regulations are designed to avoid the worst case scenarios.
right, and to be
So
honest,
that's
even
what they're there
when
for.
Andrea says, oh, it's what I was taught, it's past practice, that it's very possible that those practices, when they were put into place, those policies were within
Within where the
statutory
scope was, right.
requirements, and things changed and they didn't get updated, and they just got passed down one to one,
Right.
and the next thing you know, you're here many years later, and now nobody's in compliance. And so the question is, rather than focus on how we got here, let's figure out how to fix it and try to get it to the point where people can have faith that the system's working the proper way.
Right, so I think kind of, we've talked a bit about next steps, but then to Scott's point about kind of a timeline here, or a check-in, an update, something like that on kind of where we are in the near future here, hopefully, because there's a sense of urgency with a number of these things. The census and the registrar's poll workers that we didn't really talk about tonight. Do we have an idea of a timeline, or is this more of a conversation between you and Andrea as far as operational and oversight, and to see what kind of a reasonable performance plan kind of we have here, as far as a check back in to see what of these things that we found some concern with, that they get corrected, and that we're.
I think we should prioritize them maybe, and then write a letter with some sort of, my recommendation is that we prioritize these things in some form or fashion. Make some milestone dates, recommended milestone dates, and issue a letter from the Board of Selectmen to, the town clerk.
Donna, do you have any recommendation? I mean, I don't know that we can have timelines and milestones on becoming legally, becoming legally compliant.
Well, you can't, but,
Right.
no, but it's not really compliant, it's just sort of a check-in, I guess, it's a different thing, right? I mean, yeah, I agree with you, we can't say, become legally compliant by X, it's a
Right.
check-in of the status for
Right,
training. And
right,
things
an
like that.
update on where
Yeah.
we are with
Yeah.
things. It's not a
Yeah.
have it done by this date, it's a we've done it,
Yeah,
and here's the update.
right.
So in general, under the Town Manager's Special Act, he is in charge of the day-to-day operations of Town Hall. I would recommend that he be empowered to work with Andrea on setting up all of the things that you have discussed as what you would like to see her do, and that he keep track of that, and as he sees it appropriate for his town manager report at your meetings to give you an update on how that is going.
So how do the constituents know, though, going forward, if no one is willing to speak up and get all the backlash and abuse and false statements made about them in order to bring it forward that this is where we're at? This is, it's a autonomous position. And it's not pleasant. And it's not pleasant for, it's not pleasant bringing it forward. Nobody wants to do it, but we have a responsibility to our constituents, I think, also when we find these things, to bring it forward, but no one wanted to bring this forward. I didn't want to bring this forward, but it got to a level where I think we're derelict in our own duties when we don't state what's going on.
I mean, if someone made a motion, I wouldn't be against writing a letter, though, from the Board of Selectmen to the town clerk. It's an official sort of, that we're backing the town manager's ability to work with her and what the issues are we've discovered through thorough, so I'm not gonna make the motion. If someone made the motion, I wouldn't object to it, but I think it's important enough that we put it on paper from this board. We've talked about it enough, and I think we need to go on record as saying is that we need to look into things, so.
I think that's fair. I mean, and Donna, you know, she said we could vote to empower Joe, which I think he's kind of already empowered to do that, since you're the first point of contact here. But I think maybe some draft of a statement or a letter saying, you know, we understand there's some issues. We're raising the attention to it, and
We're here to help at the same time.
we're here to help,
Right.
right? You know, we're here to help, and we hope that you work with the town manager to remedy these issues and move forward with it. And then thus comes in the mentoring, the training, the
Right.
meetings,
I think
everything.
It's a positive, it has both. You know,
Right,
we're here to help,
and
but these are the issues we look at.
Right, and then maybe some statement about encouraging you to come to us if there's issues, or town manager, or reach out to other clerks, et cetera, to get that communication going, so that kind of everyone's working together to help be successful.
Letter? Okay,
So
yeah.
it feels like an appointed position to me then.
Right.
I think that's probably where we should have gone, but that's okay.
All right, so maybe Donna, you and I can work a little bit on a letter, even though it's a little wonky, but I'll talk to you the next day or so, and we'll figure out something, if everyone's okay with that. Allison?
I'm fine. I just don't know that we're gonna have a level of, I don't feel safe that we're gonna have a level of transparency going forward, and that people are gonna be aware of what's happening in that office. It's just
Well,
not.
I think what we're doing now, I think it's raised. I think we're working on correcting it and empowering that office to be successful, is my hope. I don't wish anybody to fail
My goal
at
is that
this.
office to be successful. That is,
Right.
We
my
need, like-
goal is Andrew to be successful, but
I will echo Scott that we need to create confidence in the community that we're doing the right thing here, and not the opposite. That's what our goal has to be, to work together to create confidence in that department and in the government, town government, that we're doing the right thing, so.
Did you guys vote on that?
Do you need to make a motion? I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen write a letter summarizing our discussion today of our concerns and our offer of assistance to, issues as discussed, on the list that we have drafted through our meeting minutes today, and send that to the clerk's office.
All right. Anybody second? Scott, you want to second that, or you got any thoughts? Are you there?
Come on, we lost him.
Awesome. Scott, you got it?
It's still red. Donna?
Is he still on?
Donna, you want to second
It's
that?
still red, yeah. Scott?
Can I second Bill's motion?
He's left their own.
Yeah, you can.
Second. Is it timing? Clock's a ticking?
Yeah. Scott? Oh.
He fell asleep.
What
All
else?
right.
We have no proof of that.
Roll call vote on that. Sean Farrell, aye.
William Wilson, aye.
Hello, sorry.
That's okay, Scott.
A lot of interruptions there. If it's already been seconded, then.
Yeah,
I'm ready
we're
to
good.
vote.
We're just doing a roll call vote now. So, Sean Farrell, aye.
William Wilson, aye.
I abstain.
Allison abstained. Scott?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so just, I think we're coming,
I'll meet with Andrea and we'll work out a plan for training and kind of getting these issues addressed. And I'll report back to you what the plan is at goalposts.
okay. So, looks like we've raised our issues. I'll draft a letter, I'll circulate it to the rest of the folks here. And then we'll send the letter to Andrea, asking her to work with us, and then Joe's the kind of boots on the ground.
Circulate it and ask them to only respond back to you.
Correct. Okay. Any other things before we
I think that's
adjourn?
it on your agenda.
All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
second. All those in favor?
Roll call vote.
Wilson, aye.
William Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye. Scott?
Scott Mattern, aye.
All right.
Scott Mattern, aye.
Thank you, Scott.
Scott?